The episode of SmackDown began with a noticeable, suffocating weight in the arena, a peculiar tension that usually precedes a natural disaster. For weeks, the blue brand had felt like a kingdom without a ruler. A lawless wasteland where the current champion paraded around with an arrogance that had curdled into boredom. The audience in the arena sat with folded arms, a collective restlessness buzzing beneath the artificial hum of the production lights. They were starving for a shift in the atmosphere, waiting for a disruptor to shatter the monotony of a division that had grown stagnant under the iron grip of a tyrant who believed she had cleared out the locker room. The champion stood in the center of the ring, microphone in hand, listing her victims with a monotonous rhythm that felt less like a promo and more like a eulogy for the roster. She claimed there was no one left, that the history books were closed, and that her reign was absolute. But the silence that followed her declaration wasn't compliance. It was the calm before a violent atmospheric pressure change. You could see the production crew signaling near the timekeeper's area. Frantic hand gestures that suggested the script had just been thrown out the window. The commentary team sat in awkward silence, their headsets seemingly heavy with the knowledge of something the viewers at home hadn't realized yet. The air in the arena felt thin, stripped of oxygen, as if the entire building was holding its breath, waiting for a ghost. This wasn't just a wrestling segment filling time. It was the deliberate construction of a void, a massive narrative hole dug deep into the show, specifically designed so that only one person on the planet could fill it. It started with a blackout, not the flickering malfunction of a production error, but the total, swallowing darkness that signals a deliberate act of war. For 3 agonizing seconds, 20,000 people ceased to exist in the dark, and then the sound hit. It wasn't just music, it was a detonation. The opening chord of her theme song tore through the PA system with such ferocity that it physically shook the camera lenses at ringside. The reaction was instantaneous and premiled a roar that sounded less like cheering and more like sheer, unadulterated shock. It was a wall of sound that drowned out the commentary team, though you could see them standing up, ripping their headsets off in disbelief, shouting indistinguishable prayers into the cacophony. The Titantron didn't flicker with flashy graphics. It simply displayed a single, chilling graphic that confirmed the impossible. She emerged from the smoke, not with the high-energy skip of a returning hero, happy to be back, but with the slow, predatory stalk of a monarch reclaiming stolen land. The shock on the champion's face in the ring was unscripted terror. Her eyes widened, the championship belt suddenly looking heavy and useless on her shoulder. The commentary finally cut through the noise, screaming about how the landscape of the entire company had just shifted on its axis. She's here. The exile is over. Look at the eyes. That isn't a wrestler returning to work. As a woman returning to settle a blood debt. The camera tracked her walk down the ramp, capturing the terrifying focus in her glare. She ignored the outstretched hands of the fans. This wasn't fan service. This was an invasion. Every step she took towards the steel steps felt like a nail being driven into the coffin of the current era. Entering the ring, she didn't pose. She didn't scale the turnbuckles to soak in the adulation or check her reflection in the hard cam. She simply slid under the bottom rope and stood up, occupying the space with a gravitational pull that made the champion look small, shrinking into the corner like a child caught wearing her mother's jewelry. The stare-down was uncomfortable, lasting an eternity, stripping away the pageantry of professional wrestling to reveal the raw, human animosity beneath. The crowd, usually desperate to chant catchphrases, fell into a hushed, reverent murmur. They were witnessing a collision of eras. The microphone exchange that followed was brief and brutal. The champion tried to speak, to assert her dominance, but the returning icon simply slapped the microphone out of her hand. The sound of the plastic hitting the canvas echoed like a gunshot. Then came the violence. It wasn't a match. It was a receipt for months of absence. The brawl that erupted was messy, desperate, and heavy. The returning star didn't use technical holds or flashy maneuvers. She threw punches with the intent to maim, tossing the champion across the ring with a terrifying, hysterical strength. Security rushed the ring, a sea of black shirts trying to separate the two, only to be tossed aside like debris in a hurricane. Commentary was losing its mind, shouting, "Get help out here. She's going to break her arm. This isn't sanctioned." The segment ended not with a pinfall, but with the returning legend standing over the broken body of the champion, holding the title belt up not in triumph, but inspecting it with disgust, as if it had been tarnished by the person wearing it. The visual language was clear. The throne had been abdicated, and the queen had returned to burn the castle down. The cameras cut to backstage, but the story didn't end in the ring. The chaos bled through the curtain. We saw the locker room, usually a place of camaraderie or scripted segments, in a state of genuine disarray. Younger talent stood by monitors with hands over their mouths, realizing their spot on the card had just evaporated. The return wasn't just a moment, it was a demotion for everyone else on the roster. The general manager was shown screaming into a phone, presumably trying to calm down network executives who were demanding to know why this wasn't advertised. Social media numbers were flashing on the screen, trending worldwide within minutes, eclipsing major sporting events and political news. The commentary team, now solemn, spoke in hushed tones about the legacy implications, questioning if the locker room could survive this level of volatility. We caught a glimpse of the returning star walking through the backstage area, ignoring the cameras. But the most telling moment was a brief, blurry shot of her family waiting near the loading dock. They didn't look happy. There were no hugs or celebrations. Her partner looked concerned, arms crossed, staring at her with a mix of pride and dread. It hinted at the personal cost of this return, the injuries healed, the time away, the promises perhaps broken to come back to this violent world. The narrative shifted from the excitement of the return to the heavy reality of the consequences. She had come back to war, and war always has collateral damage. The locker room door slammed shut behind her, a final barrier between the myth and the woman, leaving the audience to wonder what version of her we had actually just witnessed. As the show prepared to go off the air, the production offered a slow-motion replay of the night's events in black and white, stripping away the color to emphasize the grim reality of the altercation. Commentary offered a final, reflective thought, moving away from the hype and into the philosophy of the sport. They spoke about how legends never truly retire. They just wait for the division to become weak enough to need saving. But the lingering image, the one that would stick with the viewer long after the screen went black, was the final close-up of the returning star's face during the brawl. Upon closer inspection, it wasn't anger in her eyes. It was desperation. The twist that reframed the entire night came in the final seconds. As she had walked away, she hadn't looked at the championship belt she left lying on the canvas. She had looked past it, directly at the camera, and mouthed a single name, not the champion's name, and not a challenge for the title. She mouthed the name of the rookie wrestler the champion had injured and put on the shelf 6 months ago. The realization hit the audience with the force of a freight train. She hadn't returned for the glory, the money, or the belt. She wasn't back to reclaim her spot on the mountain. She was back as a hitman. This wasn't a career revival. It was a revenge mission for a fallen friend. The credits rolled on a chilling realization. The champion wasn't going to lose her title. She was going to be hunted until she quit. The story wasn't about wrestling anymore. It was about retribution.